Okay, we're going to continue on to page 143 in our textbook, and it's talking about two vocab words. Let's zoom in over here. We've got the word solstice and equinox. Those are the two things that we're going to learn about today. A solstice is the 2 days of the year in which the sun's most direct rays reach the farthest north or the farthest south. And an equinox is the 2 days of the year when the day and the night are almost the same length everywhere on Earth. Okay, let's make a little bit more sense of that. Let's go over here onto page 143 and let's read this together. It says, on or about June 22nd, people who are living in the northern hemisphere, which would be people north of us, we're right about near the equator, so that would be people living more like in northern states like Wisconsin, Michigan, everybody who is north of the equator are going to experience more daylight hours of sunshine than any other day of the year. So they experience the longest day of the year on June 22nd. This is known as the summer solstice, all right, or the first day of summer. And then around December 22nd, the opposite occurs. This is during the winter solstice. This is when there are more hours of darkness in the northern hemisphere than any other day. These solstices take place because of the maximum tilt of the Earth's axis toward and then away from the sun. All right, so here's where we'd usually pull out our foldable and make a little bit more clear sense. I do happen to have one of these that was partially filled out here. So I just want us to look at this. This was some of you may have this with you, some of you may not. This was our foldable that we were going to do next of the seasons like this. We're going to take all that information that we learned from our text, which can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming, and make a little bit more sense of it. So right in the middle here, we've got our sun. All right, the change of the seasons is caused by the tilt of the Earth on its axis as it revolves around the sun. That's what causes the seasons. So it says here, people living near the equator don't experience distinct seasons because they are never being tilted too far toward or away from the sun. They just have wet and dry seasons. So that would be including those of us who live in Florida. We're very near the equator. So if the Earth is tilting this way, or if it is tilting this way, it doesn't affect us too much here in the middle because right here we're still receiving sunlight, and over here we are still receiving sunlight. But it does affect those living closer towards the top or the bottom, the northern or southern hemispheres, because either you're tilting away from the sun or you're going to end up tilting towards the sun. Okay, so that's going to give you your winters and your summers. All right, so look at this. This little dot is where, let's say we're living right here. Okay, on December 22nd, with the way the Earth is tilted on its axis, if you're living here, even if you are rotating, right, night, day, night, day, night, day, even though it's night and day, are you receiving very direct sunlight? You're not, because you're tilted away. This is when it is winter up north. You're not receiving much sunlight. So December 22nd is the day when you are, if you're in the northern hemisphere, when you are tilted the furthest away from the sun, all right? That means it says the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun. So on this day, December 22nd, you're going to have shorter days and long nights. And you're going to have the shortest day on December 22nd and the longest night on December 22nd. All right, now remember that living up north, that in the wintertime, it would get dark so quickly and we'd have long nights and the hours of daylight were a lot less living up north in Wisconsin. But now, okay, if our sun is here, when the Earth revolves around the sun, when the Earth is revolving around the sun, when you get over here and it is June 22nd, this is considered the summer solstice because the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. So it's going to be, and if we would have finished this would have all been shaded in yellow to represent the sunlight. So the summer solstice is June 22nd. It's when the northern hemisphere is facing towards the sun. And there's going to be really long days. Even though you're you're rotating day, night, you're still going to have a lot of time where you are in the sun's light. The nights are going to be very short. That's why when I lived up north, it could be 8 o'clock at night and the sun would be out in the middle of the summer. Your days were very long and the nights were short. So that's information that you're going to want to know, is why the change of seasons and when it is the summer solstice and winter solstice if you're living in the northern hemisphere. These dates are going to be important. December 22nd is the winter solstice for the northern hemisphere. June 22nd is the summer solstice for the northern hemisphere. All right, let's pause on that, and then we're going to go to our equinox information. Okay, so moving on, we just finished talking about the solstices, which is when there's the longest day and when there's the longest night. The equinoxes occur when neither of the Earth's poles are closer to the sun. In the northern hemisphere, the spring equinox happens around March 21st, and the fall equinox occurs around September 22nd. During these events, the sun appears to be directly above the equator, and the amounts of daylight and nighttime are almost equal everywhere on Earth. The southern hemisphere's spring and fall are opposite the northern hemispheres. Okay, so let's go back over to our foldable here, or what would have been our foldable, and we are going to see that after this winter solstice of December 22nd, when the Earth is revolving, and we get to 3 months later, and it has gotten to this position, this is called the spring equinox, which is March 21st, and that makes sense, right? The northern hemisphere, neither hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. There are equal days and nights, right? Because nothing is tilted towards or away from the sun. The opposite of that, after you've gone 3 months later, and it's summer because now the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. So then we go down to the fall equinox. Again, neither hemisphere is tilted towards the sun, and there's equal days and nights. And the fall equinox happens on September 21st. All right, so it's going to be important that you know each of these dates, when the winter solstice and summer solstice are, when the fall and spring equinoxes are, and what makes them, right? Which ones have longer days, which ones have longer nights, which ones have equal days and nights, and where you would be on which hemisphere during each of these solstices, and the fact that when you're living on near the equator like us, we just have kind of a wet and a dry season, not really fall, winter, spring, and summer.